You're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social magazine that's broadcast in English and Persian via New Channel TV. Hi everyone, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. In this week's program, we'll be interviewing Tahmineh Sadeghi on rights of children with special needs in Iran.
We also will be talking about lots of other interesting things, including free expression, the Islamic regime, and the Frankfurt Book Fair. We'll talk about baby carriers for refugees, no hijab day, killings of Afghan refugees at the Iranian border, as well as the teacher strike. Stay with us. So there's a lot of different events that have taken place this past week. We wanted to speak about some of them. One, of course, I don't know if you've heard, is the fact that the Islamic regime of Iran is boycotting the Frankfurt Book Fair because they're such book lovers. I think they thought the Frankfurt Book Fair is for burning books. They didn't realize that it's actually for, publicizing books and free thought and writing. And so they're banning it, boycotting it, and they're inviting other countries to boycott it. No thanks. Because Salman Rushdie is giving the keynote address.
That's freedom of expression.
Islamic style.
Islamic sort of version. And they've said this is an insult to human dignity if you allow Salman Rushdie to speak freely about his book, launching his new title.
What an outrage.
Yeah, and this comes from an Islamic regime that bans anybody publishing book unless they've agree with it. And a lot of writers and critics are in prison in Iran. They don't recognize freedom of expression, and they have the audacity to come to Frankfurt Book Fair and say, actually, we don't like this guy, we don't like that guy. I think we are voting, everybody is voting, and I think they voted for Salman Rushdie.
Definitely, thank you. But also, it's interesting because they've also given a lecture on free expression, like they can give us a lecture on free expression, on how free expression has to, not insult people, and the same sort of things that people like David Shariat Madari and The Guardian sort of advise us not to do, it's very similar. But it's interesting how regimes that deny free expression can have the cheek and audacity to actually lecture, a book fair on what freedom of expression is.
That's how,
that's how it works.
Suddenly they become victims of this situation.
Yes,
and it's crazy.
Yeah, and that leads us to another issue related to Iran. In the past week, we're seeing, widespread national teacher strikes in Iran in many different cities, from Tehran to Sanandaj, Mashhad, and other cities as well, many other cities. And it's a continuation of protests that have been taking place for several months for better wages, for the right to association, and also for the release of teacher leaders who have been imprisoned as a result of these very basic protests.
Yes, the teachers' union in Iran, I think is a special case in a way because they have a very good network because of the education system, and they're very, very linked. At the same time, a lot of women actually are active in the organization, and the pay is very low. It's horrendously it's low, and people need for them to be able to live, they have to demand the wages to be paid on time. That's the question, and the right to organize. And the Islamic regime is treating the teachers in Iran really, really badly, and we need to highlight this issue.
Yeah, and show our solidarity with the teachers' strike and the teachers who are striking.
Yeah, this is the Islamic regime who doesn't recognize any rights for anybody.
Yeah. But also, Khomeini had said that striking is haram, or religiously forbidden. So we can see what they think about labor rights. And this leads us to another topic, actually also relevant to Iran, and it's the we got an email from an activist of the Info Center for Asylum in Belgrade, and they had written to say that they've been established since August of this year. And since August, they've interviewed many groups of Afghans, including families, but also single young men. And from all these groups that they've interviewed, there's been about 1,000 people that they've interviewed, and without any doubt, all of these groups have talked about how they've either been shot at by the Iranian border police or watched, for example, someone being beaten to death by the police. And of course, this is not something new, it's something that's been ongoing. The huge amounts of abuse that Afghan refugees face at the Iranian border, it's just, scandalous, really.
And now that everybody's paying attention to refugee rights and recognizing there is reason for people to flee war and oppressive regimes. The case of Afghan refugees are quite important because it borders Iran, and there have always been an issue with the Iranian society to support the rights of Afghan refugees, and how the Islamic regime, is treating refugees generally so badly. And now we are talking about border police shooting people, so there's no arresting people, no detention, no refugee right. They're just shooting people and trying to kill refugees.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight this because one of the things is that we often hear about how wonderful Iran is with Afghan refugees because of the sheer numbers that have entered Iran. And that's a reality of many countries which are, bordering countries. And imagine how bad Afghanistan is that they've got to go to Iran. So generally, Afghan refugees are so mistreated in Iran, from the fact that they don't have the right to work very often, or they're given the worst jobs possible. Their children aren't allowed to go to schools. There are signs sometimes in places which say no Afghan refugees allowed here, and that sort of thing. And, this is really scandalous when you think about the fact that they're being shot at and beaten to death. It's really something that we need to highlight a lot more. On another note, though, last week was also No Hijab Day, and that is a day that I like.
Yes, because in opposing the compulsory wear, which we know that the Islamist and Islamic governments impose on people, or wherever they have power, people have started sort of in a social media a campaign of No Hijab Day. Is liberatory, it's liberation, isn't it, from hijab?
I know there's some people who are saying, well, my hijab is my choice, and what right do you have to tell me not to wear it? The reality of the matter is that for a vast majority of people, hijab is not a choice. It's an imposition. Very often it's compulsory, especially when Islamists have power. And so having a No Hijab Day is a way for people who don't want to wear the hijab, who've fought to keep it off, for them to have that day too.
And we know that in Iran or Middle East, where the Islamic governments rule, it's a huge movement to get away from hijab, and people need to recognize this. This is an aspect of life in Iran and Middle East and North Africa, and we think it's a good campaign. We'll support that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll show you some pictures of women who have before and after photos. They're really brilliant. I'll try to put one of mine up as well, and so you can have a good laugh. Don't go away. The really stupid, insane fatwa of this week is from the one and only Ayatollah Khamenei. And the fatwa is, it's a very serious question. Some other stupid, whoever has posed to Ayatollah Khamenei, and it is about a Zoroastrian family. And if one of the brothers becomes a Shia, what happens when there's inheritance divvied up? What happens? Who gets more? Who gets what? And what does Ayatollah Khamenei say?
The big goon himself has said, actually, no, inheritance doesn't go to the Kafirs.
Yes, only to the one.
And Zoroastrians actually are Kafir, and these are the people who actually lived in Iran before these guys sort of even came onto the scene of history. But it's very interesting that this is the guy who's racist, the big goon. He's racist.
I like that.
He is misogynist. He's
a killer.
Yeah, and he doesn't respect any human rights.
Islamic human rights. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Be careful.
Yes. And people speak to him about him as if he is sort of somebody respected. Ayatollah. He is
a goon.
He's a goon.
We like that.
He's a big doo-doo.
Yeah, we like that.
And this is the type of thing actually they produce on daily basis from the official side. you know, they labeling people as kafir, you know, citizens of Iran, and generating racism in Iran, and that's the source of it, the big goon.
This week's Slice of Life is about a young single mother from California who started a crowdfunding campaign to send baby carriers to refugees in Greece.
And this is, you know, Christol Legothetis from, you know, I mean, just when you see her photograph with a baby and you know, and she is decided, she's seen the pictures of refugees carrying the children with no support really, and these young children have got to go thousands of kilometers to get somewhere safe. And you know, that passion, a moment, and she started the campaign. And
yeah, and it's gotten a lot of support. And of course, I mean, it's such a human, wonderful idea. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ones, aren't they? So we will put a link of her Indiegogo campaign in case you're interested in supporting it. And we thought it's just a wonderful way of supporting refugees and refugee mothers and fathers who are fleeing with their children.
Well done, Christon.